So how do you get paid as a lawyer?
The reason I love personal injury is that I only get paid when my clients win. One of the big things against attorneys is that, they charge $4,000 or $5,000 an hour. But as personal injury attorneys, we only recover if we recover for our clients. We only get paid if our clients get paid. What does that do? That incentivizes us to work for you. And I like that because I want my clients to know that I'm on their side 100%. I not only zealously represent them in words, but in action. If I lose a case, that's, thousands of dollars that we spent on experts. That's hours or days of my time. That's days of my staff's time. We make sure that, when we take a case on, we do our due diligence. And when we take that case on, we make sure we go 150% to make sure that our clients win. And, as a result, we win.
Excellent.
In terms of what we get paid if we win, that changes based on whether the person is an adult or an infant, or whether it's a personal injury case or a med mal case, which is a medical malpractice. But generally, in personal injury cases, if we recover for our clients, we as attorneys get 1/3 of the recovery.
So obviously that depends on the state as well. So in New
Right.
York, for personal injury cases, regardless of the age, if it's a medical malpractice case in New York, it's something called a sliding scale. So out of the first 250,000, the attorney's percent is, let's say, 30%. The next 250,000 recovered, the attorney's fees starts to get reduced. In New York, especially after the first $1.25 million recovery, the attorney's fee becomes 10%. In New Jersey, it's almost the same principle for both medical malpractice and personal injury cases. So personal injury cases in New Jersey is also a sliding scale. So it's not just a third, but it's a third from the initial amount. And then as you recover more money, the attorney's fees begins to get reduced. This is a New Jersey nuance, is the infant cases, the recovery for the lawyer, the percentage of the lawyer is 25% of the total recovery, not a third. So these are more important numbers to just understand for the practice. And so a lot of lawyers will either, if they're inexperienced, they will charge the clients before the case is closed, just for their time, which is not a standard way of doing it. Or they'll say to the client, oh, we're going to work on your case for free, so you should hire us. And they use that as some sort of like financial duress on the person so they could hire them. In the meantime, it's how these cases handled in the first place. So you're not really creating an incentive for telling somebody, oh, I'm going to handle your case for free. So I have my clients calling, a different lawyer prior to calling me and saying, oh, well, that lawyer said they're going to do it for free unless they win, it's contingency. I say, well, they're not doing you a favor. It's how it gets done. So
Right.
they're actually trying to manipulate you to tell you that they're not going to get paid. But that's how it's usually done. It's contingency basis. The attorney does the work, and any amount recovered, they take a third or whatever percentage it is, and the rest goes to the client. So it's important to be honest with the clients, initially.
Nice. Now that
Spring has sprung.
spring has sprung, the flowers are blooming, and it's also a time when motorcycles are coming out,
Or
right?
out from hibernation.
They're coming out from hibernation. And so in the in the world of personal injury, about motorcycles, I say don't get them.
For safety reasons, I mean, if I have a family member who wants a motorcycle, I'll probably have them think about it twice. I'm not against the thrill or the excitement or the sport part of it, But on the road, usually, one of the, to just kind of delve right into it, in our field, cases involving motorcycles have two main differences from other cases. First is usually they involve catastrophic injuries. Why? Because aside from the helmet and whatever gear you're wearing, you don't really have a protection. So whenever an accident happens, people really get bad injuries. Yeah. The other thing about motorcycles is motorcycles don't have insurance the same way a car has. So when you purchase a motor vehicle policy, insurance policy, it's going to at least cover medical bills, at least to a certain extent, It's going to cover the pain and suffering or the bodily injury for other parties and for you, and property damage, and all these coverages that are standard or required by the state. Motorcycles don't have the same requirements. So someone could be driving around with a motorcycle and can only be carrying bodily injury coverage. That's it. No property damage, no medical, right? So a lot of these cases end up being complicated usually because, let's say my client is a motorcyclist and they get involved in a car accident. Yes, the other car is at fault. Yes, the other car is going to compensate them for their injuries. But then you have, if the person was in the hospital for a month or two, you have no one paying the medical bills. So you now have an outstanding medical bill that's going to be held against the client's recovery. So usually we advise people to do the same thing that we mentioned initially in our podcast today, is to try to get all the coverages that you can available. So if they offer you on your motorcycle medical coverage, say, yes, I'd like that. If they offer additional like full coverage or property damage, yes. Can I raise the limits? Yes. So always try to amp up your coverages, whether it's a car or the motorcycle. But usually the motorcycles just involve these kind of circumstances. Big injuries, no one paying the medical bills. Because it's just the way it's structured.
Yeah. And, you know, if you do have a motorcycle, right, you should get what you stated. Get all of the optional, insurance benefits that you can. But also, you know, if you are going to be out there, make sure you know the types of situations where motorcycle injuries most likely happen.
A lot of people mention like a blind spot. You know, what kind of blind spots there are? Are there certain things that we need to know about them?
With summer coming up and with everyone coming out for maybe the second real summer after the pandemic, there's going to be a lot of traffic, during the summer. And so motorcyclists should especially be careful at intersections. Because what happens is when a driver is turning, let's say, left or right, and they don't see you in that blind spot, and they hit you, this is one of the main injuries, main causes of motorcyclist accidents. A second one is potholes on the road, especially when it rains. Those potholes kind of get dug up again, and sometimes you go into pothole, other times you swerve to try to avoid the pothole. That's another one. A third one I'd say is when drivers change lanes without seeing the motorcyclists there. And, especially if this happens on a highway, it could be catastrophic. Mm-hmm. But what happens when a motorcycle hits, a car? What happens?
That's an excellent question.
Do you just wipe off the car?
Right. No, that's another question where people come in and say, I got hit by a motorcycle. And the first question I have is, let's look at the impact. And if the impact is minimal, then it's going to be very difficult to prove injury or the relation between the injury and the impact. Again, it would have to do, maybe at a certain point, an expert would be called, a biomechanical or just accident reconstruction expert, to come and look at pictures and see if there is a way to prove that the injuries sustained by the car driver were actually resulted from the impact from the motorcycle.
Accident, crash, or collision? Which one? As experienced personal injury attorneys, do you use crash? Do you use accident or collision? Or
as experienced attorneys, the proper term to use, or we prefer to use the word crash versus the word accident or collision. Well, negligence, to summarize, is the failure to exercise due care or reasonable care within a given circumstance. We believe, or we feel, that the word accident implies some sort of absence of mistake or absence of negligence because it's just an accident, right? The word collision also just takes away that responsibility. It was just a collision, two cars collided. Experienced lawyers have learned, like us, through the experiences, that the word crash, especially when you have a clear or gross negligence case, the word crash really has a better indication to the jury, to the insurance companies, to all the parties involved, that this was a crash, it involved negligence, that it was not somebody had, lost control of their vehicle, or they, failed to press the brakes timely. So we prefer to use the word crash. So how do I know what my case is worth?
If you go to an attorney, unless it's a catastrophic incident, and that attorney says, your case is worth this much, that's BS. We won't know how much your case is worth until, you get medical treatment, you get MRIs, we see what the situation is, how badly you're injured, whether you need conservative treatment or whether you need a surgery. And if you do need a surgery, what kind of surgery? And after your surgery, how long is it going to take for you to recover? How much work are you going to miss? How much is this injury going to impact you for the rest of your life? All of these things we won't know for months on end, right? Sometimes maybe even years. But at a certain point, once you're done with your medical treatment, and after a certain point, it's just about managing the pain. Then, we'll have a better idea of, how much your case could be possibly worth.